So what if you could deploy a super complex application across, I don't know, dozens of servers with just a single command? And what if you knew, for sure, that it would work perfectly every single time? Well, that's not science fiction. That's the power we're going to get into today with what I like to call the DevOps Dream Team: Ansible, Terraform, and Docker. Let's break down how they all fit together to make this a reality. But hey, before we dive into the solution, let's get real about the problem. I'm sure you know this feeling. If you've ever spent an entire afternoon manually updating servers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that endless, soul-crushing loop of commands and checks, where just one tiny mistake can bring the whole thing crashing down. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. I mean, this is the manual grind, right? You SSH into a machine, you run your updates, you install some packages, you tweak a few config files, restart the services, and then you have to do it all over again for the next server and the next one. It's not just slow, it's practically begging for something to go wrong. One typo, one missed step, and boom, your servers are out of sync. There just has to be a better way. And of course there is. Let's meet the first member of our dream team, Ansible. Ansible is what takes that whole manual grind and just gets rid of it. It lets you define everything your server needs, but you do it as code. Something you can actually write, track in Git, and share with your team, just like any other piece of software. The big idea here is something called infrastructure as code. So you can forget about manually logging into servers and poking around. Instead, you just describe your perfect server setup in these simple, human-readable text files. Then you run one command, and Ansible makes sure that every single one of your servers, whether you've got 1 or 1,000, matches that description perfectly. It's automation pure and simple. So, how does it all work? Well, it breaks down into a few really simple parts. Your inventory, that's just your guest list, a simple file that lists all your servers. Then you have playbooks. Think of these as your recipes, written in a super easy language called YAML that spell out every single step. The modules are like your pre-built tools in the kitchen drawer for doing specific jobs, like installing software or starting a service. And finally, roles are just collections of those recipes that you can reuse, so you're not writing the same stuff over and over again. Okay, but here's the secret sauce. The thing that makes Ansible so reliable and, frankly, so awesome is this one word, imdependency. And trust me, this concept is a total game changer for automation. So what does that fancy word actually mean? Well, it's pretty simple. It means you can run the same automation script 100 times in a row and it's not going to break anything. If you tell Ansible to install a web server, the first thing it does is check. Is that web server already there? If it is, Ansible is smart enough to just say, okay, cool, my work here is done, and it moves on. This is what makes your automation safe and predictable. No more accidentally breaking things just because you ran a script twice. All right, so Ansible is amazing for configuring servers that are already up and running. But what about creating those servers in the first place? And how do we package up our applications to actually run on them? Well, this is where the rest of the dream team comes into play, and where this whole workflow gets really powerful. So here it is, the modern workflow in 3 easy steps. First, you provision with Terraform. This is like building the house. Terraform creates all the servers, the networks, the firewalls, all of that stuff in the cloud. Next, you configure with Ansible. This is like furnishing the house, installing all your software, setting up users, and locking things down. And finally, you deploy with Docker, which neatly packages up your apps into these little portable containers. This right here, this is the sweet spot. It all boils down to this simple little mantra: Terraform to create the servers, Ansible to configure them, and Docker to run the apps. See how that works? Each tool has its own specific job, and they do it perfectly. Terraform lays the foundation, Ansible sets everything up just right, and then Docker runs the show. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so we've seen how all the tools click together, but what's the real payoff for you? I mean, why should you invest the time to learn all this? Because the benefits here, they go way beyond just saving a few minutes. This can fundamentally change the way you and your team work. So what's the big payoff? Well, it's huge. First off, you pretty much eliminate human error, which makes your systems way more reliable. You drastically save time, which frees up your team to work on cool new features instead of boring maintenance. Your infrastructure becomes totally repeatable and consistent. Every server, every environment is a perfect clone of the last. And maybe best of all, you simplify complex deployments. What used to be a stressful all-hands-on-deck marathon becomes a simple push-button process. This is all about building systems that are robust, scalable, and honestly, just way easier to manage. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Think about your own day-to-day work, all those little manual, repetitive tasks that drive you crazy. What's the very first thing you would automate if you had a workflow like this? That first step is usually the hardest to figure out. But once you start, the possibilities are
If you found this helpful, hit subscribe and the bell so you never miss a video.